These 6 stories will chill you to the bone. From serene riverside campsites turned into bloodbaths, to remote fields hiding unspeakable secrets, and popular parks becoming hunting grounds, these are the dark tales of murder that have haunted the Houston, Texas area for decades. In some cases, justice was swift. In others, questions linger, leaving families with an agonizing void. Imagine 2 men, enjoying a quiet night by the San Jacinto River, suddenly gunned down, their murderer caught hiding moments later. Or the serene atmosphere of an RV resort shattered by gunfire, a life extinguished over a casual drink. Picture a family, excited about a new property, only to be slaughtered by a resentful neighbor in a remote Texas campsite. Then there's the notorious Texas killing fields, a stretch of land where over 30 bodies have been found, many of them young women, their cases remaining cold, their killers still at large. 2 elderly men, out for their morning walk in a peaceful park, brutally shot dead, their motive a chilling mystery. And the tragic story of Dean and Tina Clouse, a young couple whose bodies were dumped in the woods, their infant daughter missing for decades, only to be found alive years later, while their murders remain unsolved. Finally, the heartbreaking Lover's Lane cold case, where a young couple's romantic evening turned into a horrific nightmare, their brutal murders still a shadow over Houston. If you love videos like this, hit the like button and tell us where you're watching from or what you think about these cases in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to Cold Crime Cases so you don't miss out on future videos. Let's dive in. Case 1, the San Jacinto River Slayings, 2004. It was a seemingly ordinary evening in 2004, a time when the peaceful banks of the San Jacinto River, in northeast Houston, offered a quiet escape for those seeking solitude or a simple night under the stars. This particular riverside campsite, a spot known to locals for informal getaways, was the chosen location for 2 men who sought a reprieve from the bustling city. They were simply enjoying their time, perhaps sharing stories or the quiet camaraderie that outdoor settings often inspire, when their peaceful night was violently interrupted. What should have been a tranquil experience by the water's edge descended into a horrific scene of bloodshed, leaving 2 lives tragically cut short and a community reeling from the sudden eruption of violence in a place meant for calm. Crime timeline. The details of that night are stark. As darkness fully embraced the campsite, the quiet was suddenly shattered by the sharp, echoing reports of gunfire. The sound, so out of place in such a serene environment, immediately alerted other campers in the vicinity. Panic quickly set in. These weren't isolated shots, it was a deadly volley. Witnesses, their hearts pounding, described hearing the unmistakable sound of multiple gunshots, a chilling symphony of violence that pierced the night. The immediate aftermath was chaos. As soon as the gunfire ceased, a frantic call was placed to emergency services, reporting the unthinkable, a shooting, with 2 men down. When law enforcement arrived on the scene, what they discovered was horrific. 2 men lay lifeless, victims of apparent gunshot wounds. The peaceful campsite was now a crime scene, marked by the silent screams of the fallen. But the investigation, remarkably, didn't have to start from scratch. Critically, some of the campers who had heard the gunshots had also observed suspicious activity, specifically a van. Their quick thinking and courageous observations would prove invaluable. They pointed officers in the right direction, describing movements that suggested the perpetrator was still close by. This crucial piece of information allowed police to act with astounding speed. The suspect, unaware or perhaps simply desperate, was still on the property. Investigation and evidence. The police response was swift and decisive. Following the directions provided by the brave campers, officers began a methodical search of the immediate area around the crime scene. The tension in the air must have been palpable, as they moved cautiously, knowing a killer was still lurking nearby. Their search quickly led them to a vehicle, a van, parked suspiciously close to where the victims were found. It was inside this very van that they discovered him, hiding, presumably attempting to evade capture or perhaps planning his next move. The apprehension of the suspect at the scene, within minutes of the shooting being reported, was an extraordinary stroke of police work, aided by the invaluable presence of witnesses who had the courage to speak up. The evidence quickly mounted. The discovery of the suspect still within the immediate vicinity of the murders, coupled with the eyewitness accounts of gunfire and his presence, created a compelling case. While the initial motive may have been unclear, the physical evidence, the proximity of the perpetrator, and the reported sounds of the attack painted a grim picture. This wasn't a complex, drawn-out investigation in terms of identifying a suspect. Rather, it was a rapid response that prevented a killer from escaping into the night. It eliminated the frustrating years of wondering who was responsible, though the sheer brutality of the act remained a shocking reality for the community. Theories/what went wrong. In this particular case, what went wrong isn't about police blunders or a lack of evidence that allowed a killer to escape. Instead, what went wrong was the unfathomable decision of the perpetrator to commit such a heinous act in a place of peace. The immediate apprehension of the suspect meant that the core question shifted from "who did it?" to "why did he do it?" Was it a personal dispute that escalated violently? Was it a random act of aggression fueled by something unknown? The swift capture, while a relief for law enforcement and the public, doesn't always answer the deep, unsettling questions about human nature that drive such brutality. It underscores how quickly an idyllic setting can be transformed into a scene of unimaginable horror by the actions of one individual. What do you think could drive someone to commit such a violent act in such a public, yet secluded, setting? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Conclusion. The San Jacinto River slayings of 2004 stand as a stark reminder of how quickly peace can be shattered. While a suspect was swiftly apprehended, the chilling reality of violence erupting in a place of leisure remains. This case, though closed in terms of arrest, forever altered the perception of safety for many who frequented those quiet riverbanks. Now, let's move on to Case 2, where a different kind of tranquility was shattered in an RV resort in early 2023. Case 2, the USA RV Resorts shooting, early 2023. In the early months of 2023, the USA RV Resorts, nestled off Beltway 8 in southeast Houston, was a bustling hub for travelers and residents alike. RV parks, by their very nature, are often communities on the move, places where people from all walks of life converge, sometimes for a night, sometimes for months. They offer a sense of temporary belonging, a transient neighborhood where friendships can quickly form over shared experiences and proximity. But on one fateful night, the conviviality of this particular resort was brutally interrupted, proving that even in these mobile communities, the specter of violence can loom large. A seemingly casual gathering, meant for relaxation and good cheer, took a dark and irreversible turn, ending a life and leaving behind a pall of shock and disbelief. Crime timeline. The evening began, as many do in RV parks, with people socializing, sharing drinks, and winding down from the day. It was an informal gathering, a common scene of camaraderie among residents. However, as the night progressed and alcohol likely flowed, the atmosphere began to shift. An altercation, the specifics of which are not entirely clear, suddenly erupted. What started as a disagreement or heated words quickly escalated beyond control. Before anyone could truly comprehend the gravity of the situation, the sound of a gunshot pierced the air. The sudden crack of the firearm instantly transformed the relaxed setting into a scene of terror. In the immediate aftermath, chaos ensued. A man lay critically wounded, a victim of the sudden violence. The perpetrator, later identified as José Luis Vargas, then just 26 years old, had apparently pulled the trigger. The quick response of witnesses and emergency services was crucial. Paramedics rushed to the scene, but despite their best efforts, the victim's life could not be saved. He was pronounced dead, leaving behind a profound sense of loss and a community stunned by how quickly a casual gathering could lead to such a tragic and fatal outcome. Investigation and evidence. The Houston Police Department arrived swiftly, securing the scene and initiating their investigation. The fact that the incident occurred in a relatively contained environment like an RV resort meant that there were likely multiple witnesses to pieces of the event, if not the direct shooting itself. Investigators immediately began interviewing those who were present during the altercation and in the immediate vicinity. Their focus was on piecing together the sequence of events that led to the fatal shot, and crucially, identifying the individual responsible. Due to the number of people present and the nature of the confrontation, law enforcement quickly developed a suspect, José Luis Vargas. Information gathered from witnesses and potentially surveillance footage from the resort or surrounding areas helped in corroborating the details of the incident. Within a short period, authorities were able to locate and apprehend Vargas. His arrest brought a swift end to the immediate manhunt, providing some measure of relief to the shaken residents of the RV resort. The evidence, including witness statements and potentially forensic findings from the scene, allowed police to confidently link Vargas to the shooting, leading to his formal arrest and charges related to the man's death. This case, while tragic, was marked by a relatively quick identification and apprehension of the alleged perpetrator, bringing a swift initial step towards justice. Theories/what went wrong. In this case, the core "what went wrong" appears to be the dangerous combination of alcohol and escalating conflict. While the exact trigger for the fatal shot remains a subject of legal proceedings, it highlights the fragility of social interactions, especially when tempers flare and judgment is impaired. Was it a long-simmering resentment that boiled over? Was it a momentary loss of control during a heated argument? The tragic outcome underscores how a simple disagreement can tragically spiral into irreversible violence. What do you think could have been done to de-escalate the situation before it turned deadly? Share your thoughts in the comments. Conclusion. The shooting at USA RV resorts in early 2023 serves as a chilling reminder that even in seemingly safe, communal spaces, the unexpected can occur. While an arrest was made, the underlying reasons for such a swift and fatal escalation remain a somber lesson. Next, we journey just a short distance away to another RV park in Houston, where yet another fatal shooting occurred just weeks later, shrouded in even more mystery. Case 3, the South Belt Area RV Park Shooting, February 2023. Just weeks after the fatal shooting at the USA RV resorts, another RV park in the South Belt area of Houston became the scene of a terrifying early morning tragedy in February 2023. Unlike the previous case, which involved an apparent altercation, this incident unfolded with a chilling lack of immediate answers. RV parks, as we've discussed, are often vibrant, transient communities. People live in close quarters, their homes literally parked next to one another, creating a unique sense of intimacy and, often, a false sense of security. But on this quiet morning, that security was brutally shattered, leaving a man dead inside his own camper and investigators scrambling to understand why. The lack of immediate suspects or a clear motive plunged the case into a haunting uncertainty, transforming a peaceful mobile home into a silent testament to a life abruptly ended. Crime timeline. The early morning hours are typically the most serene in an RV park, a time when most residents are still asleep, and the only sounds are the quiet hum of appliances or the distant urban murmur. But on this particular morning in late February 2023, that calm was violently disrupted. Details are scarce, adding to the unsettling nature of this case. At some point, inside one of the campers in the South Belt Area RV Park, a fatal shooting occurred. It wasn't a public altercation that spilled out into the open. Rather, it seemed contained within the private space of the RV itself. Authorities were alerted to the situation, likely by a discovery or a concerned neighbor who heard something amiss. When emergency services and law enforcement arrived, they found a man inside a camper, deceased from a gunshot wound. The scene was grim, a life extinguished in a place meant for rest and refuge. What makes this case particularly disturbing is the immediate vacuum of information. There were no obvious signs of forced entry, no immediate witnesses to an argument, and no clear indication of who pulled the trigger or why. It was a cold discovery, a silent crime, leaving investigators with far more questions than answers right from the start. Investigation and evidence. The initial investigation into the South Belt RV Park shooting was fraught with challenges. Unlike the previous RV park case where a suspect was quickly identified, Here, police faced a far more complex puzzle. With no immediate suspects, no apparent motive, and the crime contained within the victim's camper, detectives had to start from the ground up. The crime scene inside the camper would have been meticulously processed for any and all forensic evidence: fingerprints, DNA, shell casings, anything that could provide a clue about the perpetrator or the circumstances leading to the man's death. Investigators would have also begun the painstaking process of interviewing every resident in the immediate vicinity of the victim's camper. Did anyone hear anything unusual? See anyone suspicious enter or leave? Was there any history of conflict involving the victim? The absence of a clear narrative meant that every small detail, every fleeting observation, became critically important. The lack of a clear motive in the immediate aftermath was a significant hurdle. Was this a robbery gone wrong, even if no obvious signs of forced entry were present? Was it a personal dispute that had been brewing beneath the surface, unknown to others? Or was it something far more random and terrifying? The initial days of the investigation were consumed by these questions, as police worked to unravel the mystery and bring clarity to this disturbing death. The case's early stages were defined by this unsettling lack of clear answers, leaving the community with a deep sense of unease. Theories/what went wrong. In this South Belt RV park shooting, what went wrong fundamentally pertains to the initial lack of clarity. Without an immediate suspect or a clear motive, the investigation faced an uphill battle from the outset. Was the victim targeted by someone he knew, perhaps someone who entered his camper without suspicion? Or was it a more random, opportunistic act by an unknown assailant? The fact that the crime occurred inside the camper suggests either a personal connection, a calculated break-in, or a very quiet, stealthy intruder. The silence surrounding the crime, in a place where neighbors are so close, raises chilling questions. It underscores how even in seemingly close-knit environments, terrifying acts can occur without warning, leaving a trail of unanswered questions for investigators and a community grappling with fear. What do you think is the most frustrating aspect of a murder case where there are no immediate suspects or motive? Let us know in the comments. Conclusion. The South Belt area RV park shooting in February 2023 stands as a cold and baffling case, with a life senselessly taken and a shroud of mystery surrounding the motive and the perpetrator. It highlights the vulnerability that can exist even in seemingly secure communities. Now, we shift our focus to a much larger, and far more infamous, area that has haunted Houston for decades: the Texas killing fields. Case 4, the Texas killing fields. The phrase, Texas killing fields, evokes an immediate sense of dread, and for good reason. It refers not to a formal campground, but to a vast, desolate stretch of land, approximately 25 acres in size, located in League City, Texas, just southeast of Houston. Since the early 1970s, this area, characterized by its remote, overgrown nature, has become synonymous with terror and unsolved murders. It was a place where bodies, predominantly young women and girls, were discarded, left for dead, their lives violently extinguished and their remains abandoned in a grim testament to unspeakable acts. This desolate field, once just an anonymous patch of land, became a dumping ground, a silent witness to a dark chapter in Texas history, forever etched in the minds of those who live in fear of its secrets. Crime timeline. The horrifying timeline of the Texas killing fields begins in the early 1970s, marking the start of a decades-long nightmare. Over 30 bodies have been discovered in the broader I-45 corridor area, a chilling number that speaks to a pervasive, underlying darkness. However, a specific, concentrated focus falls on 4 young women found within the League City field itself between 1983 and 1991. The discovery of these bodies, often after they had been exposed to the elements for some time, sent shockwaves through the community. Each discovery reignited fear and desperation, as families of missing girls held on to slivers of hope that were often tragically extinguished. The sequence of events often followed a terrifying pattern. A young woman would vanish, leaving behind frantic families and unanswered questions, only for her remains to be discovered months or even years later in this grim landscape. The consistent discovery of bodies in this specific area led law enforcement to believe there was likely a serial perpetrator, or perhaps multiple perpetrators, operating within the region. The cases are characterized by their baffling lack of immediate leads, the young age of many of the victims, and the sheer number of unsolved disappearances and murders. Each discovery was a new wave of anguish, a new layer added to the terrifying legend of the killing fields, perpetuating the fear that anyone could become the next victim. Investigation and evidence. The investigations into the Texas killing fields murders have been notoriously complex and frustrating, spanning decades and involving multiple law enforcement agencies. From the outset, police faced monumental challenges. The remote nature of the area meant that bodies were often discovered long after death, making forensic analysis difficult. Evidence was often degraded by the elements, or simply non-existent at the scene of discovery, indicating that the murders likely occurred elsewhere, and the killing fields were merely the disposal site. The lack of a single, definitive pattern or clear connection between all the victims, beyond their age and the location of their remains, further complicated matters. Over the years, numerous leads have been pursued, suspects have been questioned, and theories have been explored, yet many of the cases remain stubbornly cold. There have been moments of hope, such as the identification of skeletal remains through advancements in DNA technology decades later, bringing some closure to families who had lived in agonizing uncertainty. However, identifying a victim is one thing, identifying their killer is another entirely. The sheer volume of victims, combined with the passage of time and the elusive nature of concrete evidence, has created a chilling tapestry of unsolved mysteries, a constant reminder of the elusive nature of justice when a perpetrator is cunning and ruthless. The lack of a definitive breakthrough in many of these cases continues to haunt investigators and the wider community, leaving the question of "who did this?" echoing across the decades. Theories / what went wrong. The "what went wrong" in the Texas killing fields is a multifaceted tragedy. Firstly, the existence of such a secluded dumping ground allowed a predator or predators to operate with a terrifying sense of impunity for far too long. Secondly, the initial lack of centralized investigation across different jurisdictions may have hampered early efforts to connect seemingly disparate cases. Many theories abound. Is there a single serial killer responsible for all the deaths, perhaps someone with local knowledge of the desolate area? Or are there multiple perpetrators, operating independently or even in concert? Some theories point to drifters, while others suggest local residents who knew the lay of the land. The cases are further complicated by the fact that many of the victims were runaways or had high-risk lifestyles, which sometimes led to a delay in reporting their disappearances, giving killers a crucial head start. Was it a calculated, systematic operation, or a series of opportunistic crimes committed by different individuals? The open-ended questions continue to plague investigators and fuel public speculation, making the Texas killing fields one of the most chilling and frustrating cold case sagas in American history. What do you believe is the most plausible explanation for the sheer number of victims found in the Texas killing fields? Share your theories in the comments. Conclusion. The Texas killing fields remains a chilling testament to unresolved evil, a silent monument to the dozens of lives taken and the families left without answers. The vastness of the unsolved cases and the sheer brutality involved continue to haunt the Houston area. Now, let's turn our attention to another horrifying case that, while not in Houston, occurred at a remote Texas campsite, proving that even seemingly peaceful outdoor retreats can become scenes of unimaginable horror. The William Hudson Campsite Murders. Case 5, the William Hudson Brazos County Campsite Murders, 2015. In 2015, a remote Texas campsite, far from the urban sprawl of Houston but profoundly connected to the state's outdoor spirit, became the scene of a massacre that shocked the nation. This wasn't an anonymous act of violence, it was a deeply personal one, rooted in resentment and betrayal. The victims were a blended family, full of hope and excitement, who had recently purchased a sprawling property in rural Brazos County, northwest of Houston. Their dream was to build a life there, to enjoy the tranquility and freedom that such land offers. They had set up a campsite, envisioning peaceful weekends and future memories, when their new beginning was brutally cut short by the man who had sold them the land, turning their hopeful venture into a horrifying trap. Crime timeline. The tragedy unfolded with chilling premeditation. The family, consisting of 6 individuals, including children, had set up camp on their newly acquired property. William Hudson, the man who had sold them the land, was reportedly seething with resentment over the transaction. He had made it clear he was unhappy about the sale, and this simmering anger would soon boil over into unspeakable violence. On the night of the murders, Hudson interacted with the family at their campsite, even reportedly plying them with alcohol, perhaps to disarm them or to ensure their incapacitation. This seemingly convivial atmosphere was a sinister prelude to his horrific plan. Under the cover of darkness, William Hudson executed his chilling scheme. He attacked the family, systematically and brutally murdering 6 people. The details of the slayings are horrific, a testament to pure malice. In a remarkable twist of fate and incredible bravery, one survivor managed to hide during the massacre. This individual, witnessing the unimaginable horror unfold, miraculously escaped Hudson's notice and, in the aftermath, became the crucial key to unraveling the crime. Their survival and subsequent testimony were pivotal, providing law enforcement with an eyewitness account that would lead directly to the perpetrator and ensure that this horrific crime would not go unsolved. The sheer brutality and the number of victims made this one of the most disturbing cases in Texas in recent memory. Investigation and evidence. The investigation into the Brazos County campsite murders moved with astonishing speed, largely due to the courage and critical testimony of the lone survivor. When authorities arrived at the remote campsite, they were confronted with a scene of absolute devastation. The bodies of 6 individuals lay tragically still, a testament to the horrific violence that had just transpired. The initial shock quickly turned to a focused manhunt as the survivor recounted the night's horrors, pointing directly to William Hudson as the perpetrator. This immediate identification allowed law enforcement to bypass the typical initial phase of searching for unknown suspects. Within a short period, William Hudson was located and apprehended. The evidence against him was overwhelming, built upon the survivor's harrowing testimony, forensic evidence collected from the scene, and potentially other corroborating details that emerged during the investigation. The fact that the crime occurred on a newly purchased property, with a clear link to the seller, Hudson, also provided a strong contextual framework for the motive. The swift arrest and the compelling evidence presented by prosecutors ultimately led to Hudson's conviction for capital murder. This case, while incredibly tragic, stands as an example of how a crucial eyewitness can lead to swift justice, preventing a killer from fading into the shadows. Theories/what went wrong. In the William Hudson case, what went wrong is a deeply unsettling exploration of human resentment and the capacity for extreme violence. The primary wrong was Hudson's inability to cope with the sale of the land, an asset he seemingly felt entitled to, or perhaps simply hated to see leave his family's possession. His resentment festered into a murderous rage, leading him to plan and execute the slaughter of an entire family. The case serves as a chilling reminder of how deeply personal grudges can spiral into unthinkable acts, especially in isolated settings where perceived slights can become amplified without intervention. It wasn't a case of missed evidence or police error, but a chilling descent into pure, unadulterated evil driven by a twisted sense of ownership and anger. What do you think is the most terrifying aspect of a crime driven purely by resentment, where the victims are targeted simply for what they possess or represent? Share your thoughts below. Conclusion. The William Hudson campsite murders in Brazos County stand as a horrific example of resentment escalating into unimaginable violence. While justice was served with Hudson's conviction, the sheer brutality of the crime and the innocent lives lost remain a profound tragedy. Now, let's shift back to Houston for a more recent, equally disturbing case, where a morning walk in a seemingly peaceful park turned deadly for 2 elderly men, the Wildheather Park shooting. Case 6, the Wildheather Park shooting, June 2025. In late June of 2025, a tranquil morning in southwest Houston's Wildheather Park was shattered by an act of incomprehensible violence. This park, a beloved local spot, typically offered a serene escape for residents, a place where people could enjoy a morning stroll, exercise, or simply bask in the quietude of nature. On this particular day, two elderly men, both in their 70s, were doing just that. They were neighbors, likely sharing pleasant conversation as they embarked on their routine walk along a park trail. Their age and their innocent activity made them seem utterly invulnerable, yet they became the unsuspecting targets of a brutal and baffling attack, transforming their peaceful outing into a horrifying crime scene that left the community reeling in disbelief and fear. Crime timeline. The sun was barely rising, casting long shadows across the park, when the peace was abruptly shattered. Just before 6 a.m., authorities received a frantic call reporting gunshots in Wildheather Park, located off West Fuqua Street. When police arrived, they discovered a truly horrific scene: the bodies of the two elderly men, lifeless, on one of the park's trails, victims of apparent gunshot wounds. The immediate investigation revealed chilling details. It appeared the men were ambushed. Most of the shots had come from behind them, suggesting a sudden, merciless attack that caught them completely off guard, giving them no chance to react or defend themselves. The brutality didn't end there. Investigators believe the suspect or suspects then stood over them, firing additional rounds, ensuring their deaths. This level of cold, calculated violence, aimed at two vulnerable individuals, sent shivers down the spines of even seasoned detectives. Neighbors in the vicinity reported hearing a flurry of gunshots between 5:40 a.m. and 5:50 a.m., precisely when the attack likely occurred. A double-digit number of shell casings were recovered from the scene, indicating a sustained and brutal assault. The senselessness of the act, coupled with the age of the victims and the lack of any apparent struggle or robbery, immediately set this case apart as deeply disturbing. Investigation and evidence. The Houston Police Department immediately launched a major investigation into the Wildheather Park shooting, facing a perplexing puzzle. The most baffling aspect was the apparent lack of motive. Police quickly stated that robbery did not appear to be a factor, as nothing seemed to have been stolen from the victims. This immediately raised the chilling possibility of a targeted attack, but without any clear reason. The victims, identified as Nathaniel Fuentes and his neighbor, were described by family as peaceful men with no known enemies. Investigators meticulously processed the crime scene, collecting every piece of forensic evidence, including the numerous shell casings. They began canvassing the neighborhood, seeking any witnesses or surveillance footage that might have captured the perpetrators or their vehicle. A crucial piece of evidence emerged from a neighbor's camera. Surveillance footage captured the sound of the gunfire, chillingly clear, and then, moments later, the sight of a white car speeding away. Police believe this vehicle may be directly connected to the shooting. The number of suspects remains unclear, and as the investigation continues, the community is left grappling with the terrifying reality that a killer or killers may still be at large, their motive for this brutal act remaining a haunting mystery. The case is active and ongoing, with investigators working tirelessly to bring answers to the victims' grieving families. Theories/what went wrong. In the Wildheather Park shooting, what went wrong is profoundly rooted in the senselessness of the crime and the elusive motive. With no signs of robbery, theories immediately shift to something deeply personal or incredibly random. Was this a targeted killing, perhaps due to a dispute unknown to family and friends? Could it have been mistaken identity? Or, perhaps most terrifyingly, was it a completely random act of violence, a thrill kill, or an act by someone with severe mental instability who simply chose two vulnerable individuals? The fact that the perpetrators seemingly ambushed and then executed the elderly men, without any apparent provocation, paints a picture of extreme coldness and calculation. The lack of an immediate, discernible motive makes this case particularly chilling, leaving the community to wonder if anyone could be a target. It highlights the vulnerability even in seemingly safe public spaces when an unknown, unprovoked threat emerges from the shadows. What do you think could possibly drive someone to commit such a brutal act against two elderly men without an apparent motive? Share your theories in the comments. Conclusion. The Wildheather Park shooting of June 2025 stands as a horrifying and ongoing testament to unexplained violence, leaving 2 lives tragically ended and a community gripped by fear. The search for answers continues, bringing into sharp focus the fragility of peace in our public spaces. Next, we delve into a chilling cold case that unfolded just outside Houston, where a young couple's dreams were tragically cut short and their bodies abandoned in the woods, the 1981 Dean and Tina Clouse case. These 6 cases are a grim testament to the fact that violence can strike anywhere, even in the serene embrace of nature or the communal warmth of a temporary home. From the quiet riverbanks of the San Jacinto, to the transient communities of RV parks, the desolate stretches of the Texas killing fields, the dream-shattering campsite in Brazos County, and the seemingly safe trails of Wildheather Park, these are the stories of lives abruptly ended, and in many instances, justice still sought. Which of these haunted you the most? Which case do you think needs renewed attention? Leave your thoughts or theories below, and if we see something compelling, we might include it in a future episode. Don't forget to subscribe to Cold Crime Cases, where the forgotten never stay forgotten.